Reports, item number 6A, operations, Damon's. And leave.
Don't sit down.
Yeah, so this month's report does have some, I always hope, you never know if it's gonna happen, but I always hope to have some unique items in the ops report that I can share. And I think this ops report has a few things that are compelling. And try to mix it up a little bit. I think, Scott, I took it to heart a little bit that you were surprised that I knew how to use PowerPoint. So we moved over to Canva.
I wasn't surprised.
I'm just kidding. So we moved over to Canvas. So this is the first ops report in Canvas. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so cover page. We'll touch upon this in greater detail here. So right out of the gate, we love to start with our Jenny Lind service area, just talk about the number of surface lateral leaks that we have. Just want to highlight in this image, so Connor Drive repair, you can see this is often what a service line looks like when it's leaking, is just misting water into the air. The image in the bottom left, you can see the kind of light purple. That's actually the service line with an old repair clamp on it. So then if you look to the middle of the screen, you can see the open trench. So what our staff did is they left the trench open. There's a replaced service line in the trench, and then up on the ground above the trench is the old service line. And you can see how it had multiple repair clamps on it.
Huge purple pipe, is that tertiary?
This is aged tough tube, a different version of tough tube. Do you know what this one's called, Pat? This purple stuff? You guys, everyone, I think we just all call it the same. Yeah. Oh, got it.
Sloppy primary.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right. So more in Jenny Lind. So this is a case of a somewhat complicated leak. So you have a driveway, concrete driveway. The district is sensitive to having to cut into concrete driveways. So there's a leak in a riser. And what a riser is it takes a service line that's very deep, and it brings the meter up so it's accessible at the surface of the ground. And so there's a leak on this riser. So you can see our crew are actually digging and working in the dirt on the side of the driveway so they could get in there and fix the riser. And then ultimately the image on the bottom left is what happens after they're done. So they're able to fix the leak, fix the riser, put the meter back, and put the property back in service. Okay, another continual topic of conversation operationally are fire hydrants, their operations, their maintenance, and their replacement. And so here's Oddfellow Street in Jenny Lind, replacement of a fire hydrant, different perspectives of the image. This is all the old fire hydrant being uncoupled from the water line and then being prepared to be taken out of the trench. So you can kind of see, if you look in the image on the right, see the cut pipe at the bottom of the shoe of the hydrant. The image on the left is just kind of a flipped perspective. See the open hole and the water main next to the pickup tube for the vacuum truck. And then the hydrant itself chained up to a crane. And it's about to be taken out of this location. And so here, the image on the right is the new hydrant being set in service and set in place. And then you can see the operating valve, brand new operating valve in the image on the right. So a lot of our fire hydrants don't have operating valves. So when they break, oftentimes we have to shut the main and put people out of service to repair or replace the fire hydrant. So whenever we do that work, we install an operating valve. And then what happens oftentimes is, in the past, they don't have sanitary aprons like the image on the right. So when our crews are done, they go ahead and put a concrete pad and make it nice and clean. So great job to the construction crew and the Jenny Lind distribution team. It's a pretty compelling set of photographs. So this is what happens when a 6-inch water main explode under pressure. It took out Dunn Road. And you could, as you walked on it, you could feel it settle, the road settle, because it just exploded in concrete. And this was, I want to say this was like Thursday at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So, so just more images of the asphalt and then the water pushing debris and the underlayment of the asphalt down the road. This is kind of on the hillside. And so first things first, as is common in many of our service areas, you have to remove the old blasted rock from the original installation of the main before you can actually get to the main. So that's what's happening on the left. So you got a member of the crew in the hole that the water main break made for itself, removing large rocks that were blasted when it was originally installed. And then you can see the break in the image on the right. Still trying to determine how this broke. This is off an offshoot of the A to B transmission line, the currently in service transmission line, not the new one that's being constructed. We're not sure completely why this portion of the main blew up here. Just various images of the break, and then images of the work. So you can see member of the crew getting down in there, pulls the top of the pipe out, which is in the center image. And then the folks are continuing to work. You can see the lighting that the gap backs provides to the trench. And then you can see kind of just kind of to illustrate that oftentimes when you drive by a crew and there are folks standing there, they might look like they're not doing anything, but in this case, Curtis and the was doing a critical job with flashlights, because even though we have overhead floodlights, to be able to see actually what you're doing, it's nice to have highlighted. So somebody that understands the work that's taking place is able to anticipate what you're going to need, and they'll light up the torque wrench, they'll light up the cutoff saw, they'll light up the pipe, and that's what's happening. So you can see image on the left, open broken pipe, image on the far right, it's been cut out. And then here's the new pipe being installed. Once again, in the center picture, we've got flashlight person, Doug, and then you have somebody setting the torque on a torque wrench, because those clamps that actually connect the old pipe to the new pipe, they have to be set at torque. So we have to know exactly how they're set. The pipe is set upright, as is our engineering specifications. You need to be able to read what's on the pipe. And then our crews actually go back in and know locating wire to that section, so it can be found later. So then here are images of the backfill, compaction, and then discussion about what to do with the asphalt. Now, this is not a job that our paver could do, because this is broader than 9 feet. This is almost 13 feet in width. So we do work with a list of on-call contractors, and we were able to get them out in just a couple days. Literally, this happened Thursday night. Monday, this was paved. And so hats off to them. That's the Brian Herring paving, I believe, did this work. And that is the after. Yeah, 270 feet, actually. Yeah, that's
Quick question, Damon.
yeah.
When we have a waterman that breaks, we get that substantial road damage. Joe customer drives into it, wrecks his car. Are we liable? Is that a problem for us at all?
Yes, that could definitely be a problem. Absolutely. So what happens in these kinds of situations, you can see that we'll set up barricades, and we'll position vehicles and cones to section off the area. And actually during this issue, Pat reached out to the county and works with the county road department and public works and lets them know what's going on. And we set a detour based on their recommendation. I think I have an image of it here on the right. Yeah, we just basically sectioned it off. And then the county met Pat and members of the crew out there on Monday when the paving was happening, kind of took stock of everything that was going on, and then showed up afterwards and gave us a thumbs up.
There'll be public comment.
I have a question about
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
yellow suitcase light. What you said that is
Pelican lights?
with the gap back.
Well, so we have lights on the pickup tube of the gap backs, and we also have these lights that are super handy, that are battery powered boxes, and you can telescope the light itself. And so we have those, and then we have let's see if you can see it. There's one right there in the image in the center. They're great.
So how many of those do we own?
I'm not sure. 4.
Okay, and you say they're battery ready, they're rechargeable.
Yeah.
What a great
Yeah.
tool.
And then you can see the light on the tube of the gap backs there.
Did we use that to power the electric vehicle?
You know, we attended a Carb Expo in Oakland last week. There are some little street sweepers who might be able to charge. So foray into video here. So imagine you're the on-call person. You get a call at midnight for a water line break. This is kind of what you're gonna see, and this is what you roll up on. Like, so this is a service line break at a meter box, shooting up, 25, 30 feet in the air. It's midnight. You were snug in your
Oh.
bed. Yeah, it's cold.
I saw,
Hats off to Nick and Eli.
I saw that in Yellowstone.
I bet you did. Yeah, exactly. So they were able to go out and make the repair, manage the pressure, which is step number one, and put people back on the roof. So hats off to the guys. So we don't have a ton of copper service lines, but we do up in Arnold, we have our fair share. And so this is an example of a repair of a copper service line. Kind of hard to see, but in the images on the kind of on the right side of the screen, you can see the copper a little bit glinting off the surface there in the bottom, right? And then the final repair there for plant on the rest of the for the copper. So here's as you guys have heard, so much undergrounding work is happening up on its pass, results in some service line breaks and some main breaks. Here's a 6-inch AC main repair. You can see often asbestos cement pipe, AC pipe, the image on the right will do this, just break and like a perfect snap, almost like a shear break. And full circle clamp does the trick. So you get that, what is that, a 6-bolt full circle clamp in the image on the right, get in there, throw that on the main to the back. And so here's an example of that undergrounding work, whether it's our mismarks or it's a line that deviates from an area that we had no idea there was a line there, or whether it's a flat mistake on behalf of PG&E contractor. It always results in a ton of water coming out of the ground. You have 6-inch water mains. You can see the image on the left with subcontractor for PG&E just kind of regarding their work there. And then the water flowing everywhere in the image on the right. And then our crews are able to get in there, identify what happened, and clean the pipe, make the cut, and then repair with a Hymax coupler. Those are those blue. They're really snazzy. They're just a 1-bolt coupler. You torque those to spec, and then we'll connect the water main to the, as you can see, the C900 PVC section that we installed to make the repair.
What's the PSI on a 6-inch line?
Well, it varies greatly. Depends on the type of pipe, but we can have anywhere from 170, 180 PSI upwards of 300 plus. So, yeah.
That variations even in one system.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely. I mean, right. Kind of inherent to the foothills is we're going to have pressure variability. Ebbets Pass, we have hundreds of pressure reducing valves or pressure sustaining valves. And so this is an example of a pressure reducing valve, and they have pilot controls. And so in the pressure reducing valve itself, the image kind of where you can see the operator's hand is on that blue bonnet, there's a diaphragm in there, and the diaphragm floats based off pilot control pressure. So you can put water to the top of the bonnet, you can take water off the bonnet to allow it to float and move. So you go from an area of high pressure to an area of low pressure by pilot controlling how the water sits on top of the bonnet. You need some electricity for that also. And so essentially what our guys are doing here is they're taking apart the pilot control. You can see Bill in the center of the picture. He's unbolting that, and they're going to replace the internal components. And so there's a diaphragm. You can see kind of the image on the right after the bonnet has been taken off. There's like a set ring and a tube and a stem that the diaphragm can float on. And so you can see this image on the left shows kind of like there's water coming out of this small play valve, this pressure reducing valve, but we're not exactly sure what's going on. So you got to take it apart And you can see in the center picture that there's a hole in the diaphragm. So it's going to equalize pressure across a diaphragm. So if you were up in an area of, variability, the elevation is all over the place and you equalize pressure, that's a big deal. You can have to, if you have 150 coming in and you're breaking pressure to 50 going out, and then this diaphragm equalizes pressure, now you're going 200 down here. And so it's really important that our folks keep an eye on all of these pressure reducing valves and maintain them so that we don't blow hot water heat. We're not, that makes us really unpopular. So you can see the brand new diaphragm being installed in the image, in the center image, and then the operator's holding the old one and it's kind of bent it so you can see the tear. And often the pilot controls can allow us to get in there and make a repair before results become catastrophic. And then there's even the small control in the image on the left. You can see there's a small diaphragm in there that's taken out and then reinstalled. So this is PRV 96 of 100 plus PRVs up there in the system. This is so Kevin's talking today. We're talking about the Arnold Wastewater Master Plan. Kevin and his team are also working on the Ebbets Pass Water System Master Plan. And one of the things that really helps inform the master plan is the hydraulic model associated with the distribution system. And in order to answer some questions that everybody might have had about how the system functions hydraulically, we need to conduct fire flow tests. And there's an added benefit to conducting fire flow tests is that we understand what fire flow is for these fire hydrants. And if you fire flow test one hydrant, it acts as a surrogate for the 5 nearest hydrants to it. So it really benefits the fire departments as well. So this is kind of a multi-benefit work effort that our distribution crew and consultant that works for Kevin's team did a couple weeks back up on the pass. You can see they're usually using these digital pressure gauges on hydrants. So what will often happen is you'll have somebody flow testing a hydrant. So they want to understand what that flow rate in gallons per minute is leaving the hydrant and what the pressure is when they're max flow rate. But they also have to, due to the variability of the topography of our system, make sure that we don't drop below 20 PSI anywhere in the system while we're flow testing fire hydrant, because then we were going to have to place folks under more. You can't drop the system below 20 PSI. So that's what's happening in the image on the right. We're watching a hydrant of concern to make sure that we don't exceed that discharge rate. And functionally, that becomes the flow rate of the fire hydrant. So if you can flow that at 2,000 gallons a minute, but at 1,000 gallons a minute is where you get to 20 PSI, we're going to let the fire department know, hey, if all bets are off, obviously you're going to do what you got to do. But functionally, to keep the system safe, you need to flow like this. So the topic of how much does the fire hydrant flow can get really complicated really fast. Here's an example of what can happen when you flow a fire hydrant to understand its capacity. You have to find some place for all that water to go. And you can see that, luckily for a lot of these hydrants, it was in the forest. And then for some, our guys are super creative. They put down tarps so it's not to damage the area. And then, this thing is ripping across the road. And so that, meanwhile, there's somebody at a few other hydrants checking the pressure. Folks are talking back and forth. You see Bill was on his phone and they're saying, okay, I've equalized, I'm at pressure. What's that hydrant? And all of that information goes into the hydraulic model, which will be incorporated into Kevin and his team's master plan. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So, and then, that operator there is he's kind of going, okay, guys, like, when somebody going to call me and tell me to stop? Is the whole ground's shaking, everything's rattling, there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of volume. Pat's there, keeping things in check. It's quite the event. So hats off to everybody that was involved with fire flow tests. Here's another example of that creative slip and slide for the fire protection. All right, so example of our crew up in West Point's work. Doug, he does an excellent job up there. This is a service line to the McCulmy River Pump Station. So this is one that can cause definite concern when you see water flowing out of a pump station. You're not sure if it's the main, if it's the raw line. There's also a raw line and a treated line coming through this area. So Doug was able to get in there, identify the issue, and make a repair. These are 3 service lines connected to a meter cluster at Barney Way. Here's real heavy vehicle drove over the meter boxes and broke all of them, broke everything. So our crew came in after hours at the end of the day, made the repair, fixed all the services, and put everything back together. Here's the finished product where all the meter boxes are set in. And then the construction crew. So this is kind of a deja vu all over again. This is a FEMA funded project that we completed in 2021, which was also funded by FEMA through disaster declarations related to atmospheric river storms. So the image on the left is silt and debris that was pushed into the diversion in the 2022-2023 atmospheric river storms that caused so many issues throughout the county. And so we applied for FEMA funding to remove that debris, and FEMA funded the work. And so the image on the right, you can see after removing how much debris was pushed down Bear Creek from this runoffs from the storms. You can see there's actually some boulders that are living inside the diversion there.
Speaking of atmospheric rivers, we are expecting almost 5 inches of rain over the next 4 days. Are we ready for it? Is it
We're ready. We're not excited though, but we're ready. Yeah.
Ops is not excited about it. Andrew's thrilled.
Yeah. Ops is not excited. Yeah. It's usually, yeah. And then, the stormwater protection implementation, right? So the image on the right after this work is done, I mean, just hats off to the guys. It's just super clean work. Fish and Wildlife was out there. We had what's called a 1602 permit, and they flipped that permit around super quickly. They were really happy with the work the guys did. And we are too. They did a fantastic job. And you can kind of get an image. I think there's a better image here of the diversion. So you can see the valve on the left, kind of which diverts the water from there's a little reservoir there, and it flows into our Bear Creek pipe, which goes down to our West Pipe treatment facility and the Bummerville regulating reservoir. This is something that we don't get to do every day, confined space training. So we actually have a day of classroom and then a day of out in the field of learning about how to work in confined spaces, what's safe, what's not safe. A lot of focuses on gases that exist in the confined space and how you evacuate those gases before you go in, and then the device that you wear to make sure that you're safe when you're in the confined space. And so you can see different staff participating in different ways. When you're in a confined space work event, you have 2 folks that are outside, then you have 1 person inside. So the person inside is called the entrant. And then you have the attendant. I guess you can have multiple attendants. And they're kind of checking on the entrant the whole time, talking back and forth, whether it's via radio, just holler at each other back and forth, watching the person, and then monitoring and talking about gases and monitoring gas. So they'll have a gas sniffer, we call them. There's a tube down, in this case, a manhole, where you can gauge what's going on with the gases. And then you have an entry supervisor. The entry supervisor is kind of controlling the whole operation. So everybody that works in the field was able to participate in this training. Fabulous training with OSTS was the group. They did a great job. Our electrical team covers a vast and diverse array of work efforts. And, when the power goes out, oftentimes we call them because we look around and we're like, hey, the neighbor has power. That facility has power. My treatment plant doesn't have any power. What's going on? And the electricians drive out into the field at our property at Copper and say, oh, it's kind of hard to see, but the image on the left, there's a power pole just fell over. Power's out. And so they actually are a liaison with the PG&E Troubleman. And they do a great job coordinating their work and making sure the site's safe, and working with PG&E to get us back in action as quickly as can be. Relative to some of the capital improvement projects that are happening, in this case, a Wallace tank replacement over in Wallace, our electricians need to understand the equipment that exists there in anticipation of replacing equipment to maintain. Is it going to have a different kind of float? Do we want to put telemetry on top of the tank? What do we want to do? And so that's what this is all about. You know, you've got electricians that go out and they assess the equipment and then create basically a replacement list of equipment so that we can plan for that in the future. CAL FIRE support, there was a few dead and dangerous trees at the Arnold wastewater treatment facility near Tanwood Mobile Home Park. And so the CAL FIRE crew did a fabulous job coming in and taking out approximately 5 trees. You can't really see it in the image, but that sign says dead tree on the stump there. And then I do want to acknowledge that this is, you can see it a little bit better there, and that's the crew, and that's the tree fallen from CAL FIRE. This is the Vallecito camp. They do absolutely great work for us. A whole nother set of, you know, grubbing and brushing hands and feet. And they do a lot of good work. And for many years, Ron Rose coordinated that work. And here's Ron in a throne that they cut for him on one of the jobs. He would coordinate with CAL FIRE, call them every morning, line them out with the list of jobs that we have all over the county for all of our facilities. One of the CAL FIRE chiefs made him that cup, and he's retiring next month. And so this will be his last ops report. So I just wanted to acknowledge him and what he did with CAL FIRE.
I'm glad you did that. Ron didn't want a resolution. He didn't want a presentation like that, but I mean, what a huge part of CCWD for a long time. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you're calling him out there.
Yeah, he got a throne out of it.
Yeah.
Have we ever been able to hire any of those young men that come out of that program?
I don't believe so. But we have been able to hire folks from similar facilities.
On board.
Great report.
Thank you.
Just a call.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Okay, this is informational, but we will have public comment. Again, this isn't discussion, but if you'd like to ask a question, this is the time. Thank you. And if it comes back to mind, you know where he sits in the mornings. Thank you.
You have our emails too.
Mike?
Was it about the main break?
Okay,
Getting
let's listen to Mike.
Mike Rogers, Valley Springs. Thanks again for, I always enjoy the photos and everything. And, you know, I have complete confidence and faith in your crew to do this work. But my question for you is, last year you had developed this dashboard. And or do you have plans to bring the dashboard back on a periodic basis? Because the thing that, you know, I look at as a ratepayer is the incident rate. You know, how often are we sending crews out at midnight? Because that drives overtime, and overtime, you know, is a budget line item that can sometimes get blown out of the water. So can you maybe comment on the dashboard?
Absolutely. So for those of you that don't know, we have in our work order system, we have what I call the dashboard, which basically breaks down all of the work orders completed by the different crews and whether they were it was emergency work, it was, you know, preventative maintenance, it was scheduled work, what the nature of the work was. And we can see that. Also, we can also push up against, we have a heat map of where the service line repairs have taken place or any of those issues. And for some time, we would provide snaps of the dashboard in the ops report. So I can absolutely do that for the next ops report.
Okay.
You know, and I know it takes a little time to aggregate that data, and maybe month over month, it's maybe not so valuable. It can be quarterly, would be helpful. And the other part is, you know, as we're making all these investments in infrastructure, and so on, looking at it year over year is where it begins to become meaningful. If I'm sitting behind this counter here, that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. And particularly as a ratepayer, because, you know, it tells us, are we trending the right direction? Because we're making significant capital investments here. And I know the one bar graph that stands out was the one that was leaks, right? And these unplanned service events, you know, not only affect, you know, customer satisfaction, obviously, but costs, you know, getting back to overtime. So if, as you begin to build the data and we can see year over year, then we can go back to the ratepayers and say, hey, you know, this is a result of the investments that we've been making where we're reducing, you know, they just use tank A and B as an example. You know, we're replacing all those service lines. I'd like to think that the incident rate for leaks in that particular service area would begin to decline over time. So as you're building it up, you know, showing it year over year is going to help these guys understand, you know, are we moving in the right direction?
Yeah, great point. And we also have some kind of representative projects that we can use to illustrate the benefit that way also. So yeah, I'm happy to work on that. Rather than, yeah,
Guys, to the board.
apologies. I think the approach, I think, is more about, it's less about what happened last month and it's more about kind of an overall, this is kind of this is where we're going. This is, you know, the broad stroke approach, which we can provide that to you. Yeah, absolutely. At your pleasure.
There are no more questions. Thank you very much, Dave. Appreciate that.